Well, hey, good evening, you crazy kids. I'm so excited for tonight's group. My name is Dominic Insenius. I'm the leader here at The Heart, and we have just finished a message series that we're doing at The Heart called Graced. And in this message series, we looked at how God has graced us for many things, and we focused on 4 of them. We said that He has graced us for redemption, for peace, for wisdom. And this last week, we talked about God gracing us for forgiveness. And it was huge to be able to see how many people walked out of church on Sunday. If you haven't listened to the podcast, I want to encourage you to listen to it, because when people walked out of church, there was so many people who wanted to walk out of there forgiven, who chose to be forgiven. So I'm excited to get into tonight's group. Now, if you missed Sunday morning and you haven't been able to listen to the podcast yet, what we looked at is that we are forgiven by God. And that forgiveness comes by way of His grace. And the embodiment of His grace is Jesus Christ. So we looked at Jesus coming and Him going to the cross, dying for our sins and coming back to life. When He did that to forgive us. For His sacrifice to cover all of our sins, to forgive sins. He paid the price for many, and that's us. We are the for many that Jesus paid the price for, and it's through that God was able to use and say, we are forgiven because of the sacrifice that Jesus made. And what we want to do is, how can we forgive? Because if God has graced us, if He has said we are forgiven, we said the last couple of weeks that God gave us wisdom, now we can have wisdom, right? And we can give wisdom to others. God gave us peace, now we can bring peace with us. So what we want to say is that God gave us forgiveness, God forgives us, now how can we bring that forgiveness into the relationships that we have in our life? How can we forgive others? So if we look forward to that, I want to jump into tonight's first question. We're going to have a couple of questions. There might be some 2-part questions in here, so stick with me, but we want to be able to discuss this. Now, I want to encourage you that we're only going to be able to grow more as a community, as a church community, if we share what we're thinking. So I want to encourage you to be brave and to be bold and to share what you're thinking when it comes to these questions, because when you do, you help others take steps of faith. You help others with their journey of faith. They're trying to figure it out just like we all are. So I want to encourage you to be bold and to share. So the first question tonight has to do with one of the passages that we looked at, and I'll put it up for you here in a second, but it's in the book of Luke 6:37. That's where Jesus says that when we forgive, that we will be forgiven. So what I want us to kind of first look at and maybe think through, and I want to get your opinions and your thoughts are, what does God gain from forgiving us? If we look at the concept of forgiveness, we forgive others, and one of the things we said on Sunday is when we forgive others, we're getting rid of bitterness and anger and hurt in us, and we are setting them free. But what I want to talk about is, what does God gain from forgiving us? And do we gain the same thing when we forgive others? So let's take a few minutes, go around the room, and let's get some thoughts, and let's discuss this together. Second question tonight is going to get a little bit into our lives, a little bit into what you have experienced in your life, and it has to do with forgiveness. I want us to be able to go around the room and take a few moments and let's describe a time when you have been forgiven by somebody in your life. Maybe it was your boyfriend or your girlfriend, your husband or your wife, maybe your kids, maybe your mom or your dad. Somebody forgave you for something that you did to them. Maybe you hurt them in some way. You hurt them physically, emotionally, relationally, and they made the choice to forgive you. I want you to describe a time when that happened and how that made you feel, what you experienced when someone forgave you, someone in your life, and maybe, if you're bold enough, what that did to your relationship. Either positively or negatively. I want to be able to, it's safe to say whatever you think, whatever your perspective is welcome here in this group. So let's take a few moments and let's talk through us describing a time. I want you to describe a time when someone forgave you for something that you did, and how that made you feel, and what that did for your relationship with this person. So let's go around the room, we'll take a few minutes and talk through that together as a group. Now, the last question for the evening is going to be a challenge, something we can take with us and do and activate in our daily life. And that's what we said on Sunday, is we want to activate our grace. Because Jesus is offering us this grace. It's something that is freely offered to us, but it's when we activate our grace that we're able to take that into our lives, apply it to our real world circumstances, situations, and relationships. And that's when we're going to see growth in our faith and growth in our walk with Jesus. So what I want to ask you today, this challenge that I want us to be able to take on, something that we're going to go forth into our life and apply it into our actual life, our future, is this, is who do you need to forgive? Because when it comes to forgiveness, there are people in our life who have wronged us, who have hurt us, who have cut us deeply. And we do our best to cover that up, to try to avoid it, to try to forget it. But it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up in our relationships. It keeps coming up in job interviews. It keeps coming up in every single area of our life, sometimes when we don't even want it to. So what I want to look at and what I want us to think through, and I want to see if you can be bold enough and brave enough tonight, and even if you can just be thinking about this and praying through it throughout this week, is who is it in your life that needs your forgiveness? Not because they deserve it, because they don't. But it's when you freely offer forgiveness, when you choose to forgive, that we do exactly what God did with us when He chose to forgive us. And that is when our grace is activated and we have become graced. So I'm going to leave you with this, is who do you need to forgive? And even more pointed, who will you forgive this week in your life? I love you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, a great rest of your week, and I can't wait to see you Sunday. Have a great week.